The name of the podcast for those kids playing at home is Again for the First Time, which is a misnomer now because this is again for the second time, probably the most knowledgeable person that I've come across personally, who's in this space of social media, of branding themselves and branding the sport. Emily Kate is just a dynamo. She knows her stuff, and just expanding on what she does each and every day. And I am so happy to have her here after game one. We'll get this out. It'll probably be around game three when this comes out. But I want to talk to you about the finals, talk about some of the other things. But first, Emily Kate, how are you now?
I'm great. Thank you. Thank you for having me again for the
Yes.
second time. I appreciate it. How are you doing?
I'm doing well,
Great.
and first I can't talk about basketball without first talking about your Warriors, your thoughts on good, bad, the ugly, and off season, and what do you think is going to happen?
Oh man, I do think let's just get it right out the gate. I think that they do keep Klay Thompson. Now, I do think that teams are going to come in with some, enticing offers. I know there's been talk of the Magic, there's been talk of the Knicks, even the Lakers. So I can see the Warriors possibly lowballing him, and then he goes and inquires elsewhere, and then the Warriors, countering with a better offer. I don't
Hmm.
see him getting a similar contract to what he's just had. Obviously, he's not exactly the same player, but I do think that they keep him, keep the core three together till the wheels fall off, and that Klay is willing to take a little bit of a pay cut, given that he was getting paid all those years being injured, and that he wants to finish it out with his boys. So that's number one. Number two, I think we move either Jonathan Kuminga or Andrew Wiggins in the offseason. If I had to guess, I would guess Wiggins over Kuminga, just because in the past they've been, very keen on keeping Kuminga, given how young he is, how high his ceiling is. So definitely think that Wiggins gets moved. Hurts to say, but they got to do something, because the last two seasons it's felt like a twilight zone. Granted, we are very fortunate as fans to say that, because who else can say, four rings in the last 10 years? So to
Yep.
just expect ring after ring, that's silly. But at the same time, we are used to this winning culture with Steph Curry, Draymond Green, Klay Thompson, Steve Kerr. So I do think they need to do something, because it just, when you go so high on the mountaintop and then you just crash and burn, it hurts so much more. And that is me saying that as a Jets fan, as
Right.
someone
Oh
who is
yeah.
terrible for my whole life, pretty much. It actually
Mhm.
hurts more when you taste it and then it
Right.
all falls apart in front of you. So
Oh
I
yeah.
expect something big for sure.
And by the way, for the record, I'm still bummed. We talked about it last time. It should be five titles because that whole
Mhm.
Cleveland debacle, that should have
Oh
never have
my
happened.
goodness. It's just, honestly, if we're that, not just that, but also I know injuries are part of the game. It happens every single postseason, but 2019 too. I mean,
Yep.
just the back to back with KD and Clay, and then Steph was banged up too. So yeah, it's always going to be the ones that you don't get that probably hurt the most. But I
Oh,
gotta say,
absolutely.
2022 made it all. It made up for all of it. So
Oh,
we're
again,
we're hanging in there.
100%.
We're okay. Four rings, 10 years, we're good.
So the Knicks, boy, they overproduced in the playoffs, didn't they?
Oh my goodness, yes.
Fun team to watch.
So much fun. I was rooting for them so hard. New York, born and raised. So if
Mhm.
Knicks aren't playing the Warriors, I'm a Knicks fan. But
Right.
it was just with the Villanova boys,
Yeah.
so much
Oh,
fun
wow.
to watch. Oh, I
Hmm.
really hope. I mean, this isn't going to happen, but if they were to bring McAllen and they,
Hmm.
reunite all of them, that would be so much fun. But yeah, injuries got the best of them, unfortunately. I mean, that aside from 2019 with Golden State in the finals, I think that may be the worst injury run I've ever seen to at
Oh,
least the essential players.
oh, yeah.
Everybody was getting hurt. And it wasn't like oh, let me miss a game. It was like, okay,
No.
we're out for the season.
Yep.
It was ridiculous.
And they went into that and no excuses. You lose, you lose. You just lose, you move on. But they
Mm-hmm.
went in against Indiana. Boy, they were just hurting.
Oh my
And
gosh.
they were just so that's why. And you know this. I mean, you're visiting New York, as you said earlier. Well, we talking a little bit before we went on air. Um, Nobody's that upset. We had a great run, and it was enjoyable to watch.
Yeah.
My son was at a concert last night at the Garden, and he was like, "Boy, the Knicks had a good run." You
Mm-hmm.
know. So back to the Warriors for a second. I am not saying Steve Kerr needs to go. However, does he need to adjust his approach?
100% needs to adjust his approach. He's not going anywhere. He just signed a new contract. He's one of the top paid guys. And, he has produced winning results. So there isn't any, especially nowadays with how fickle people are with coaches and how quickly GMs are and owners are to get rid of a coach. It's absolutely crazy to me. So
Agreed.
Like you said, he shouldn't go, but he needs to change his approach because it feels like at this point, we're expecting the same result from a team that got those results, number one, when they were younger and they were healthier and able to do those things. And are they still able to produce at a high level given their age? Absolutely. But it feels like the league has caught up to what they're doing and they know how to approach it better. So I think there definitely needs to be some form of an adjustment. I'm hoping for a good assistant coaching signing. I know there's been a, word of a couple of different coaches.
Right.
But we lost Mike Brown, and it feels like we lost our defense. We lost a lot of the heart and soul of the team. And so I really, really hope that they pick up an assistant in the offseason that can really help take what the system is, because you're never going to change from the off ball and whatnot, but take the system and just tweak it to where it can be more effective, because teams know what to expect at this point. And if Steph Curry, he is still playing in his prime. He looks great. He's doing great, but he can't be your only 20-point per game scorer on your team at 35 years old, 36, So they got to do something. They got to tweak it for sure.
How surprised were you about last night? And let me just say this before I get your response. Last year, I remember watching the Celtics play Miami, and I remember saying that this Celtic team, and I live up in Massachusetts now, as you know, Cape Cod, they don't have any toughness. So because they folded like a bad, a beach chair in that 7th game against Miami, and they played a little tough. They just stood outside and hoped for the best. Listen to Dallas talk, and again, this is just one game. I just thought they were going to run roughshod or try to beat the Celtics, just physicality. But to Celtics, to their credit, I was surprised at how they just stood the test.
I got to be honest. I really wasn't surprised at how that game.
This is why I'm going to you. Yeah.
I'm taking Boston in the series. That doesn't mean I want Boston to win, but that they will win. To me, Dallas has had an amazing run, but it kind of reminded me of 2022, where they had this amazing run. They beat Phoenix, in game 7, they blow them out at Phoenix, and they get to the Western Conference Finals, and everybody, this is their year. And then the Warriors gentlemen sweep them.
Right.
It feels similar to that. Granted, they have Kyrie now, but they also had Jalen Brunson then. This is a different team, obviously, and they haven't been to Luka hasn't been to the finals yet. Obviously, Kyrie has. So it's a relatively new area for most of the team. But they also still have some experience from those 2 years prior, being in the Western Conference Finals. And, they have dudes on their team that have been in the league for a couple of years now. It's not so fresh. So I definitely expected them to be more poised, I guess. And it's only one game. So they will bounce back, I'm sure. I expect it to be 6 or 7 games a series. But I do think that Boston will take it. And Boston, they may have only made a few tweaks since they were in the finals 2 years ago, but picking up Drew Holiday was huge, even though Marcus Smart that year was Defensive Player of the Year, which is crazy. But Porzingis, I don't think anybody anticipated him to come back after being out for 30 days and play the way he played.
I mean, he played like a man possessed. He really did.
Oh my goodness. He really did. And, we know what he's capable of, especially as Knicks fans. And we've saw what he did in Dallas. I think, I don't know if you saw his comments with JJ Redick on JJ's podcast about his time with Dallas.
No, inform me. I did not see those yet.
Okay. So he did a little podcast with JJ, Old Man and the Three. And essentially what he said was, in the playoffs, I don't know if you remember back when he was with them, I believe, I can't remember which games in particular he sat out, but he wasn't quite himself and he was injured, sat out. And he had said on the podcast that he was bitter about the role that he had for the team. So he just purposely sat in the corner and basically didn't contribute because he felt exactly. Yeah. And he says, looking back, I was young, I was stupid. I wish I didn't do that, but it is what it is. So I feel like that definitely lights a fire under Dallas fans, bare minimum. Oh, sure. But then he comes out and, I feel like he was saying more than just, playing great. It felt like there was a little bit of emotion there for him.
That was personal.
Was
Last night was
it
personal.
was definitely personal. So I loved it. I absolutely loved it.
Me
I
too.
don't want Boston to win, but I was happy that he played well and he came out guns blazing.
You know, like when I sent you a couple of private messages last evening, it just as a Knicks fan, I was like, oh, I
Yeah.
wish he was still with us.
I know. It hurts. It really does hurt, especially after this postseason, the way that it went. Granted, the dudes, if everybody stayed healthy, it would have been such a different result. But just imagine him on that team with that group of guys. It would be absolutely insane.
So who gets the Laker job?
Oh, well, they're saying, I know that they're looking at UConn's coach now.
Yep.
But I don't think he leaves UConn personally.
No.
And then I know that they mentioned JJ Redick.
Mm-hmm.
At this rate, I think JJ Redick would be the wrong hire. I have nothing against JJ. I love him. I just think that being a head coach isn't in his forte.
Mm-hmm.
He could obviously prove me wrong, but I also think that his first go at a head coach should not be the Los Angeles Lakers, because that job at this point, it almost feels like a death sentence. Like you're going to take the job 2 years, from that point, you're going to be X'd out of the league. So,
and you're a puppet master. That's all you are.
Exactly.
I agree.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this as I just jump all over the place, because God knows this is what I do. I thought what they did in Milwaukee, I said this publicly on my social media, I thought it was terrible. I thought they were in first place and they fired the coach and they bring in a coach, great player, who is, every year is first round, second round out.
Yeah, I don't know what Milwaukee was thinking, because I could be wrong, but I know for sure they had a top 3 defense. I want to say they had the best defense in the league at that point.
You're right.
Mm-hmm. And they were second in the East?
Mm-hmm.
So that was just so out of the blue. I feel like there is more to the story there than what was released to public knowledge, because it was so left field that it made absolutely no sense. And now you have, their old coach, Mike over in Phoenix. We'll see what he does. He looks a lot healthier. He looks a lot happier. So happy for him. But it feels like Milwaukee, ever since they won that championship back in 2021, that they're kind of just turning their wheels and trying to figure out what works. It's like, we have the Greek Freak. Okay, we bring in Dame time. But it feels like they have the puzzle pieces, but they're not putting them in the right spots. And they're kind of just seeing what will stick.
You know what they reminded me of? They reminded me of the debacle that the Nets talk. They're just too much stuff going on. And just leave it alone, set it and forget it. Let them play. You went from first to second in the league, like you said, at the time, and then you knew they were going nowhere.
Yeah, it was a very strange. People always use the word aura, and I think it can go both ways. The aura, it doesn't have to just be a good thing. It was a very strange aura about the team when they hired Doc. It kind of felt like, okay, their season is done. And granted, they had to deal with injuries and whatnot, but so does everybody else.
Everybody does.
Yeah, it's a part of the game. But when they hired him, it didn't feel like, okay, this is what we needed to win. It more so felt like, all right, let's just look towards next season and figure out what's next.
Yeah. So what happens in game 2?
Ooh,
because
I think
this will air right after game 2. So what happens?
Okay, let's see. Magic 8 Ball.
I love it.
So I think I do have the text messages to prove this. I'm going to stick by what I said. I said Boston blows out game 1. They come out swinging. Boston is notoriously good in game 1. Dallas has been notoriously okay to bad in game 1s this postseason. So I figured at home, Boston, they're going to come out guns blazing. They're going to be hitting their threes. Same thing happened against Golden State. I think they were up like 16-2 at one point. So I expected that. And I think game 2, I do think Dallas takes game 2. I think Dallas takes game 2. I think it's going to be a very close game, very back and forth. But I do think we get a lot of Kyrie and Luka ISO.
Right.
And I'm expecting some kind of, game-winning shot by Kyrie or Luka, something like that. Last 10 seconds puts it up. They win the game. So it'll be a nail biter. But I think that Dallas does steal game 2.
I think you're right. Because, again, we have the messages to prove it. I think for the Celtics to win this series, they need to take both games at home. I think Dallas knows that and will play accordingly. One thing that I haven't seen mentioned in any of the write-ups or talks yet, not that I'm the smartest guy in the world, God knows I'm not. I have trouble with the two-piece puzzle. But even if you give me the first piece, I'm like, oh, where's the next one go? The free throw yesterday, the free throws by Dallas was horrible.
Oh my gosh, I know.
What
It
was
was
that? It was like they were doing it on purpose. They weren't, but it was really that bad.
yeah, it felt like Boston's game from the very first minute. And I know that Dallas had that little run in the third quarter where we thought, okay, it's down to 9, maybe they're gonna make it. But even when it was, for at least me, when it was a 9-point game, it still felt like Boston's game to lose. It honestly feels to me like Boston's series to lose. Just because they have such a deep team. That's not to say that Dallas doesn't, but Boston is definitely by all means deeper in my opinion.
Yeah.
And I think that the part that is toughest for me with Boston is I like the players on Boston. For me, it's more so the organization, the fan base. I'm probably gonna get crap for that, but I'm a New York girl.
I agree.
You're from New York, you cannot root for Boston teams. But I do like Boston in a sense for the sake of basketball because they play such beautiful team basketball and such great defense that I think those fundamentals to show that's what wins is crucial for the upcoming generations of players, because Dallas, it's a lot of ISO. It's a lot of Kyrie ISO. So they could play team, do a little alley-oop here and there. But the way that Boston plays, I feel like it's just better for the sport itself going forward for people to see, hey, you play like a team, you're going to win. It's not just one guy.
Oh, I agree. I'm a huge fan of Boston's coach as well. I think he is, head coach 2024, if you know what I mean. That style, team play, doesn't get all hot-headed, doesn't get too low, they're just staring into space. He's involved, but there's a lot of trust there, and you can feel that reciprocity where you don't see that with the Lakers. You just see like, you're the coach, you stay over there, and so there's a commonality there. And didn't you love the Walton t-shirts?
Oh my gosh, I did. I loved hearing like all of the stories, and because there was just, everybody was posting their text messages and he texted everybody the same format, but like everything was just so personable. And you could just feel the love that he had for the game, for everybody involved in the game, everybody that came into his life. And so the t-shirts with the tie-dye, I loved it.
So what does Emily Clark do post NBA season?
Oh, well, got the WNBA. So super.
Well, we got to talk about that. Thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah, absolutely. So WNBA, I will admit that I haven't followed it as closely in the past, and I'm not just following it closely now because of Caitlin Clark. I'm also following it closely because, number one, they've definitely, all together, I feel as a group, the talent has definitely risen. But also, I have a sister. She plays professional ball overseas, and she gets
I knew that.
Yep.
Emily Kate, shout out to your sister.
Yep. Shout out to my sister. She always gets on my case. You need to follow women's sports more. You need to follow the WNBA more. And so I'm like, okay, you know what? I'm going to do it, because I started watching it every night consistently. And I'm like, this is a great league, and I think that there's so much potential for it to grow even more. So very excited to, watch the WNBA. I went to a Liberty game the other weck.
I was going to say, I love that you not only did you go, but you were kind of let your presence be known on social media that there you are and supporting. I mean, I love hearing that as a Division I softball coach, women. I love hearing that because the sport is a great sport.
Absolutely,
WNBA.
That's why I posted it, because so many people, they're spending so much time yapping about this and that, and WNBA, they need to do this, they need to do that, and then people, it's like, just stop talking about it and go buy the tickets, buy the jerseys. That's what's going to grow the league. They need to create an income, because it's money in versus money out. So this isn't me saying equal pay for everybody, because I do understand at the end of the day it's economics, and obviously the NBA brings in a lot more money, so those players are going to get paid a lot more money. But the way to make the playing field more even is to start supporting and start putting your money into it. That way they have the money to go and pay those girls more. Those girls shouldn't have to go play overseas. The ones that aren't the biggest names in the league, they're going and they're playing overseas in between seasons because they can't make a big enough paycheck from the one season. And it's a 3-month season, so that's part of it. But still, they definitely deserve more love.
They should play 3 months And then with, NIL and other things, they should be
Mhm.
able to have a nice living. Thank you very much, that kind of thing. And
Absolutely.
in terms of playing overseas, you know who should be playing overseas? I mean this very seriously. People like myself, I got offered to play in Italy, not big enough to play in the pros,
Mhm.
so when my college career was over, those are people.
Yeah.
These are talented players who should be thriving here. So let's get into it for a second. What do you think of this whole Caitlin Clark taking fouls, all that other stuff? And then I'll tell you what I think.
Okay, so I do think part of it is a part of the game. And it's not just, oh, she's a rookie. These girls are competitors. They're going to compete. So whether you are a rookie, whether you are a vet, they're going to compete. I understand that. I do think that there is a small part where, and I could be completely off base here, but it does feel like there's a little bit of animosity as far as the attention that she gets and whatnot, because she's not the only talented girl in the league. Granted, she warrants that attention. She's breaking records. Her college career was next to none.
Mhm.
But there are girls like Asia Wilson that deserve a lot more love than what they've been getting. So I
100%.
understand that. But I do feel like there's a little bit of animosity that I don't want to say that she is targeted, because it doesn't feel that way. Like I said, these girls are competitors. But I don't know. I feel like the league is in a very tricky spot, because some people, they say, oh, Caitlin's your meal ticket, you don't want to kill it. But, then you have the other people that are saying it's more than just Caitlin. So they need to
Right.
find a balance where the people who are loving Caitlin and the people that are hating the narrative can come together and just support the league. Because at the end of the day, that is what should be happening. It's just support the WNBA. And while the narratives are frustrating, the conversations can be frustrating, and there's a lot of back and forth. At the end of the day, good press, bad press, they're talking about it.
Oh, absolutely. What I'll add to that is, now, how much hockey do you watch? Because I like hockey. So how much hockey do you watch? You watch a bit.
I watch a bit. I will
Yeah.
admit I could watch more, but I do watch a bit. And I've been keeping up with the Panthers and whatnot, because
Oh,
I've been to a couple games and
you're
whatnot.
you're a Florida girl. Oh, it's just
Yeah.
as well. You've been everywhere. We know this. So, and the reason I bring this up is, if this was, and it's different sports, but it's the same mentality. Look, Caitlin is a great player. She's kind of slight. I'm sorry. If you can intimidate her and get into her head a little bit, that is helping your team.
Mhm.
In hockey, it happens all the time. That the flashy forward who can dipsy doodle with the stick, somebody's going to run them. It seems to be okay in male sports, but somehow in female sports you try to do it. Don't get me started.
Yeah.
I think you
Yeah.
know where I'm going.
Yeah.
You can tell the rest of my narrative.
Yeah.
It's part of the game.
Mhm.
Chirping is part of the game. That it's just part of the game. I'm
I
sorry.
love it. Personally, I love when girl, guy, whoever, when they are
Yeah.
chirping each other, when it's back and forth, when it's, for the love of the game and it's within reason, I absolutely love it, because like I said, these guys are competitors. You know what I mean? Like,
Yep.
I like to see the passion and the fire. For me,
Mhm.
at the end of the day, it also just comes down to, I don't know if you caught what Draymond Green said, but he said, listen, you're going to be the villain about Kennedy Carter. He's like, you're going to be the villain. That's fine. That's what I do. Like, absolutely. I love it. But you got to stand on what you say. So if you're going to
Yep.
do something and somebody wants to talk about it, you got to talk about it. Especially,
Absolutely. That's the key. That's the
you
key.
have to stand on what you say and what you do, because, it's one thing to throw an elbow, but if you're going to throw an elbow, mean it, because you know what I mean? You stand on your word.
Look, I'm doing a podcast after we conclude with a gentleman that we've talked about in the past, Kevin Kaminsky. He NHL. He played for the Washington Capitals. Tough guy. His job was to throw the elbow, and he never apologized. It's part of the game,
Yep.
and you got to get in somebody's head. That young rookie's dipsy doodling, bore him to the head. You know what I'm saying.
Yeah,
It's-
absolutely.
that's what you do as an offensive lineman. Let me tell a little secret. You ready? I held on every play, but I was really good at it. I was really good. I'd put my thumbs underneath the shoulder pads and it looked like I'm not, it was perfect.
Did you play for the Chiefs?
Oh God, I wish. No, I never did. But, yeah, I know what you're saying. I know what you're saying. Absolutely. But, let me wrap up now and just tell you, so what's next for you?
That's a great question. Right now, I am trying to get more into sports broadcasting and whatnot, and continue developing my brand, because there, like we were talking about before, there's so much you can do with social media. So just continuing to develop that. I've also been looking into, some positions and whatnot in different sports cities, just trying to get even more into sports than I am now. And kind of just going from there. I mean, there's just so much opportunity in this particular field. And it's sports. Who doesn't want to do that, for a living? So people that play it, people that talk about it, they're very fortunate. And so I'm trying to kind of do the same thing.
I make no promises, but I have a few connections, and I think you're top shelf. And
Thank you.
I'll do what I can. Seriously.
I genuinely, I do appreciate it. And, hopefully the Jets can give us something to smile about this year as well. So
I'm just glad. I'm glad they got rid of those hideous uniforms. That's the good step in the right direction.
Yes, right. Yep, bringing back the retros. I love it. Absolutely love it.
And you know what? You made me want to go out. I'm going to today get myself a Liberty jersey.
Oh, I love that. Do you know which player you're gonna do?
Tell me who.
Oh man, I mean, I have a love for Stewie and Sabrina, more so Sabrina because of the whole 3-point contest with Steph.
Yep.
So, but there are so many talented girls on that team, and that team, I think that they have a real shot to win it all this year. I mean, they were in it last year, and the Aces still look just as good, but I feel like Liberty, they are cooking, man.
Yeah, I want to win it when the other team, in this case, the Aces, are at their best. I don't want to win it down here. I want to beat them at their best.
Exactly. And I do strongly, if you haven't been, strongly recommend going to a game because I have to say, I think that I've been to a lot of games before, never WNBA, but a lot of NBA games, different arenas. And I felt like aside from Miami, it was the best spectacle out of all of them, where you just felt like there was always something going on, and it wasn't something where it's like, all right, I'm not going to pay attention. It was engaging, it was uplifting, and everybody, their fans. What's crazy to me, real quick, I went to a Nets game, and granted, it was against Golden State, so you're gonna have more Golden State fans than Nets fans, but there is so much more love for Liberty than there are for the Nets because it's a Knicks town. You know that.
100%.
So it's just so nice to go to an arena and see, in Barclays, and be able to see how invested all the fans are and how invested the girls are in the fans. It's really fun.
Oh, that's great. I definitely will do that now. I'm back on the East Coast, which I love.
Yes.
And Emily, thank you so much for being my guest today. This was outstanding.
Absolutely. Anytime. I mean, you shoot me a message. I'm happy to jump on anytime. It's always a pleasure.
You be well. Thank you. And I'll send you that book we talked about. Bye.
Yes.